So this happened when I was 11 years old in the 6th grade. I always listened to my teacher, and most of the time I was just a quiet kid. But one day, in my 6th period gym class, we were doing laps around the track. When I reached one end, there's this big fence there. I saw some 30-year-old guy waving with a weird grin. But I couldn't tell who he was waving at, so I just kept running. The class ended, so I packed up and was getting ready to leave for home. When I was going towards the front gate, though, I saw the same guy. I could have sworn he was looking at me, but he was not grinning anymore. He was full-on smiling now. I started to speed walk away because I was getting a little freaked out. After I got far from my school, I turned back and I did not see him, so at least I was relieved at that. Soon after, I was walking along, and a blue car pulled up to me and rolled his window down just a little bit. I couldn't see the face of anyone inside, but all I heard was his voice. He said, "You look like a nice kid. Nice and smart." And I smiled and said, "Thank you." He said my full name, and I was very shocked. And then I asked him, "How does he know my name?" He rolled the window all the way down, and of course, it was the same guy I had seen earlier. He had that same creepy smile. I ran and I kept running. I looked back once. His car was still there. But home was only 5 minutes away, so I just kept running. After I made it back to my house, I was sweating. My hands were shaking, and I went around to every window, every door, and locked them. Eventually, I didn't see anything, so I went to sleep. I woke up in the middle of the night, looked at the clock, and it said it was 11:32 p.m. I was so thirsty, so I got up to get some water in the kitchen. I went to the fridge. I heard a knock. I kind of ignored it at first, my groggy mind hazy. I heard a knock again. It was on the window. I looked to see what it was. To my shock, it was that same smiling man with an item in his hand. I couldn't see what he was holding because the outside lights were off. I was starting to think I was going to faint. But luckily, with a burst of willpower, I ran to my mother and father's room. I tried the door, but it was locked, so I just started knocking and banging on the door. I did it so loud that eventually they woke up. They were mad at me for waking them, but I started yelling that there's a creepy guy outside the house. My father went to look. I stayed with my mother. My father went to every window, every door. He didn't see anything, he said, but that's when we heard a noise from my room. My father ran that way, and my mother phoned the police. When the police arrived, they found my father holding a man down. The man had a kitchen knife, and he had broken the window to my room and was sneaking in. The police obviously arrested the man. A few days later, I knew that they had given some information to my father. He wasn't going to tell me where I was so young, but I begged. Eventually, he told me that they had found evidence, videos from storefronts and other people's doorbell cameras, things like that. There'd been evidence that the man had been stalking me, following me home from school when I walked. They'd even found evidence that he had been standing outside my window, presumably at night, and just watching. I tried to tell my friends, but they don't seem to believe me, where I'm just 14 years old. All I know is that I try to keep everyone aware, careful, watch everyone. I can only imagine what would have happened if I just kept sleeping that night, if I hadn't gotten thirsty, if I hadn't noticed him, if I hadn't told my parents. That guy would have broken my window. That guy would have killed me. Thanks, Dad. A dangerous situation, but all too based in reality as well. When you were a child, what would you have done if you saw someone waving at you with a smile, here, there, and everywhere on your way home? Be careful out there. And I do hope that you'll join me again in the future for more Frail Blaze tales.